In this video, we're looking at practice number 11 in TABE Tutor Practice Book 1. Practice 11 begins on page 24. So if you will turn to page 24 in your workbook, I will turn to it in mine, and we'll take a look at adding and subtracting fractions. And I have put a blank sheet of notebook paper in to work my problems on, just so that I'm not trying to scrunch them up in these spaces and we might miss something. I don't want you to have to squint and try to figure out what I'm doing. So I am going to do mine on a sheet of notebook paper. Okay, the first question says, Thomas has 5/8 a gallon of paint. He uses a ½ gallon to paint a door. How much paint does Thomas have left? Now, I do want you to notice the word left because that tells me to subtract. So my problem is 5/8 minus a half. And let me turn over here to my notebook paper and I'll do that problem for you. So it is 5/8 minus 1/2. And you might be wondering why I'm writing the problems vertically this time. In the lesson before last, we wrote them across the page. And that's because they already had common denominators. In this situation, we have to find a common denominator. So that's going to be my first step, is to find a common denominator. And that denominator is the bottom number. Those have to be the same if you're going to add or subtract fractions. So to do this, I'm going to look at the largest number. Let me just put some bullet points here. So look at the denominators that you already have. You want to find the largest one. And I won't write this every time, but this is basically the steps that you have to follow. It's an 8. And so ask yourself, will the 2 divide into 8 evenly? And it will. So 8 is your common denominator. 8 is the one that we're going to use here. So I'll put an 8 down here. The top fraction is already 8ths. So I just bring that 5/8 over. But this bottom one, I have to work with just a little bit. I have to say, how many times will 2 divide into 8? And it will go 4. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And so 1 times 4 is 4. So I have raised that 1/2 up to 4/8. And then I'm ready to subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. So the answer to this number 1 is 1/8. And that would be option B. You must get a common denominator to be able to add or subtract fractions. That's why lesson 10 was so important. Frank runs 3/5 of a mile and then walks 1/4 of a mile. How far does Frank travel? Keyword is and. So we're adding 3/5 and 1/4. So let's look at number 2. We have 3/5 and 1/4. fourth, and we want to add those two fractions. So I need a common denominator. And 5 is the larger of the two, but 4 will not divide into 5 evenly. So the 5's not going to work for me here. In this case, I'm going to multiply my denominators. 5 times 4 is 20. That will always give you a common denominator if you multiply the ones you have. So 5 times 4 is 20. That one will work just fine. So to raise these up, I'm going to say 5 goes into 20 4 times, and 4 times 3 is 12. 4 goes into 20 5 times, and 5 times 1 is 5. And then we're going to add 12 and 5 to get 17 over 20. And that will not simplify. So 17/20 is your answer. Let's see which one that's going to be. That is A for number 2. 17/20 of a mile. And I want to go back to this one just a minute. I've told you that I always draw problems where people are walking. And I didn't forget. I was debating whether to do that this time, and I think I want to. So let's draw the journey that this gentleman made. It was a fixed distance. And if you recall, he ran 3/5 and walked 1/4. So he ran for 3/5 of a mile. And then this last segment of his journey, he walked 1/4 of a mile. So that's an illustration of what's happening. So it's telling me that he ran, if we use our equivalent fractions, that's 12/20. And he walked 5/20. And once I get those on equal terms, I can tell you what the entire distance was. And that's what we were looking for. 12/20 plus 5/20 means that the entire distance was 17/20. So he ran 12/20 of a mile, and he walked 5/20 of a mile. So the total distance was 17/20. But we have to have those common denominators to make that determination, to add those numbers. And here's the word and. That means add. Okay, number 3. I need to go back and read it. I don't have that one. Kelly reads for half an hour and Barry reads for 5/6 of an hour. How much longer, there's an word, does Barry read than Kelly? So this is a subtraction. 5/6 minus a half. So 5/6 minus 1/2. And I need to get a common denominator. The best one is one that you already have. So let's look at the 6 and see if 2 will go into 6 evenly. And it will. So that's the one that I want to use. This one's already where it needs to be. 2 into 6 is 3, and 1 times 3 is 3. So we can subtract here. 5 minus 3 is 2/6. That will actually reduce down to 1/3. And I'm not sure which of these answers they're going to want. So let's look back over here and see. 2/3, or I'm sorry, what were my choices? 2/6 or 1/3. And they actually want the 2/6. They have not reduced it. It could be either one. So the answer to 3 is A. Okay, number 4. Holly rides her bike 3/5 of the length of a park trail. After her break, she rides 2/6 of the length of the trail. How much of the trail does Holly ride? So this is an addition problem, 3/5 and 2/6. And let me just put it right here. I'm not going to draw this one. You can if you want, but my video will get very long if I do that on all of them. And we're adding these two together. The best common denominator is one that you already have. So look at your 6 and ask yourself, will 5 divide in there evenly? And it won't. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply 5 times 6 to get my 30. Okay, 5 into 30 is 6 times. 6 3s are 18. 6 into 30 is 5 times, and 5 2s are 10. And we are adding on these. So I get 28 30ths, which will reduce by a 2. 2 into 28 is 14, and 2 into 30 is 15. So either the black or the red could be the answer. I'm betting on the black one, but let's see. Number 4. Yes, it is D, 28 30ths. They did not simplify them. And I'm not sure what happened there. Hopefully it will let me come back. I apologize for that. My iPad just went haywire on me. I really don't want to start the video over if I don't have to, so I'm going to just let that run. 28 30ths, and the answer here is D. Number 5. Grady has 12/15 of a spool of twine. He uses 3/5 of the spool. How much is left? So we're going to say 12/15 minus 3/5, and I can do that one right here. I have plenty of room. Ask yourself if the 15 will work as your common denominator. Will the 5 divide into 15? And it will. So let's go ahead and use that one because that one's already 15ths. This one, I have 5 into 15 is 3. 3 3s are 9. 12 minus 9 is 3 over 15. That will simplify. 3 into 3 is 1, and 3 into 15 is 5. But they want the unsimplified version, which is B, as in boy. Okay. Number 6. Lauren reads 1/5 of her book in the morning and 1/3 of it in the afternoon. How much of the book does Lauren read? We're adding this time. 1/5 plus 1/3. Ask yourself if the 5 will work as your denominator, and it will not, because the 3 will not divide in there evenly. So let's say 5 times 3 is 15 and use that as our common denominator. 5 into 15 is 3, and 3 times 1 is 3. 3 into 15 is 5, and 1 times 5 is 5. Add those two to get 8 over 15, which will not simplify, but the answer is B, 8/15 of the book. 8/16 would be halfway, so she's just under halfway. Stephanie mows 2/3 of her lawn, takes a break, and then mows 1/6 of her lawn. How much of her lawn does Stephanie mow? So she did 2/3 and 1/6. Ask yourself if the 6 will work, and it will. So let's put that down. This one's already done. It's already a 6th. So 3 into 6 is 2, and 2 2s are 4. And you need to add those to get 5 over 6. That would not simplify, so A would be the answer here. You must get a common denominator. Number 8. Joey uses 2/6 of a bag of potting soil on his tomato plants and 5/8 of the bag on his pepper plants. There's and. How much potting soil does Joey use in all? So this is addition. 2/6 and 5/8. So let's see what we have here for common denominator. Um, 8 will not work for your denominator. I will tell you that 24 will work. That's the lowest one that would. But I have told you to multiply 6 and 8, so let's go ahead and do that. I don't want to change up too much on you right here. And then we'll reduce it to get our answer. So 6 into 48 will go 8 times, and 8 2s are 16. 8 into 48 will go 6 times, and 6 5s are 30. And we are adding here, so we get 46 over 48. Don't panic on me. We're going to reduce that by 2. So 2 into 46 is 23, and 2 into 48 is 24. He used very nearly that whole bag. 23/24 of the bag, and that is C. If you use 24 as your denominator, that's fine. You will get the same answer after you do all the work. Number 9. Ramona spends 3/7 of an hour on homework Tuesday and 6/8 of an hour on Wednesday. How much longer does Ramona spend on homework on Wednesday? So this is a subtraction problem. We have Wednesday's amount is more. So 6/8 minus 3/7. And ask yourself if the 8 will work for the common denominator. It will not. So I'm going to say 8 times 7 is 56. Let me zoom here so you can follow me. 8 into 56 is 7. 7 6s are 42. 7 into 56 is 8. 3 8s are 24. and we're subtracting this time. Common denominator is 56, and 42 minus 24. That's going to be 12 minus 4 is 8, and 3 minus 2 is 1. And there is your answer. This one will simplify, by the way. Into 9 over 228, I believe, would be the simplified. But it's the 18 over 56 that we're interested in. And that is answer B for number 9. Okay, number 10. We're getting there. Just bear with me here. I need to get past that to get to my problems. Without coming up for air, Ashley swims a half the length of the pool on her first try and 3/4 the length of the pool on her second try. How much farther does Ashley swim on the second try? So she's got 3/4 minus 1/2. Ask yourself if the 4 can be your denominator, and it can, because the 2 can divide in there evenly. This one's good to go. But 2 into 4 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And this time we are subtracting. So we get 1/4, and that will not simplify. Number 10, the answer is C. Number 11. Leah has 5/6 foot of cedar board. She uses 7/10 foot of the board. How much of the board is left? This is subtraction. So we have 5/6, that's what she had to start with, minus 7/10 that she used. And ask yourself if the 10 will work for your denominator. It will not. 30 would work just fine if you want to use that. But if you don't recognize the 30, let's do 6 times 10. That's 60. And that will always give me a denominator. 6 into 60 is 10. And 10 fives are 50. 10 into 60 is 6, and 7 sixes are 42, and we are subtracting. So that's 8/60, which will simplify by 2. Actually, I believe there's something else, but let's just keep going. So that is 4/30. That will go again by 2. To get 2/15. But the answer they want is the 4/30. So the answer to number 11 is A. Number 12. Edwina drinks 10/12 gallons of water Sunday and 16/24 gallons of water Monday. How much water does Edwina drink in those 2 days? So this one is addition. 10/12 plus 16/24. And ask yourself if the 24 will work for both denominators, and it will. This one's good to go. But this one we have to do a little math. We have 12 into 24, that's 2. And 2 times 10 is 20. And then I can add these to get 36 24ths. And that is answer B. Number 12 is B. I do realize that's improper, and my teachers would never have let me leave that as it is. But this is what this book wants, and that's okay. We'll do what they ask us to do. Number 13. Jamie pressure washes a fourth of his house Saturday morning. His son pressure washes 3/5 of the house Saturday evening. How much more, that's subtraction, of the house does Jamie's son pressure wash than Jamie? So we have 3/5 minus a fourth. And the 5 will not work for the denominator. So let's do 4 times 5 to get 20. We know that one will work. 5 into 20 is 4, and 4 3s are 12. 4 into 20 is 5, and 1 times 5 is 5. And we are subtracting. So that leaves a difference of 720. That will not simplify. Answer to number 13 is D. Number 14. While Chance is at the gym, he lifts weights for half an hour and runs on the treadmill for a third of an hour. How much time does Chance spend at the gym? So we're going to add a half and a third. And the 3 will not work for your common denominator. So let's say 2 times 3 to get the 6 for the denominator. 2 into 6 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 into 6 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And I apologize if you hear my telephone. 5 over 6 is your answer. It will not simplify. So let's use this one as your answer. 5/6 of an hour. And that is answer C for number 14. John waxes 2/5 of the floor, and Jackson waxes 3/7 of the floor. How much more, there's subtraction, of the floor does Jackson wax than John? So you put Jackson first, because he did more, minus 2/5. 7 is not going to work for me this time for denominator. So let's do 7 times 5 to get 35. And then raise those both up there. 7 into 35 is 5. 3 5s are 15. 5 into 35 is 7. 2 7s are 14. So subtract to get 1/35. So they were pretty close. Not a lot of difference at all in the two jobs. The answer to number 15 is A. Number 16. Be careful here, guys. I like this question, but be careful. Christian wants to add 7/8 to 8/12. Which two fractions will Christian use to complete the addition problem? So we need to choose two answers for this one. And our fractions are 7/8 and 8/12. And unfortunately, the 12 will not work on this one. Now, what I have told you to do is to multiply your 12 times 8, which would give you 96. This time I'm going to break that pattern because 96 is not going to work here. We need to find what's called the lowest common denominator. And you can do this. It's not easy, but you can do it, I'm pretty sure. So if you have to find a lowest common denominator, what you want to do is take the two denominators that you have. You have an 8 and you have a 12. And let me just be sure that you're following me. Here's the 8 and here's the 12. And we're going to list the multiples of those numbers. Just like when I was counting on my fingers, counting by 8, it's exactly the same thing. So for this one, my fingers are worth 8. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. How far do I want to go? Let's go just a little bit further. 56. Again, I'm sorry, guys, if you hear my phone. And I'm going to leave that alone right there. So let's do the bottom one the same way. This time, my fingers are going to be worth 12. 12, 24, 36, 48, go one more, 60, and let that be, the ellipsis shows that it can carry on. It keeps going. We are looking for the lowest one that these have in common. So the lowest common denominator is 24. And that's the one that we need to use up here. So let's bring this. You see why I didn't want us to go through this process every single time. But in this particular case, we have to do that. So let's raise everything to 24ths. 8 into 24 is 3. So that's a 21. 12 into 24 is 2. So that's a 16. And there are my answers. 21 24ths. So this one. And 16 24ths. You want D and F to be your answers on this one. And I realize that this is a lot to understand. Depends on what your background is in fractions. So if this one doesn't make sense to you, I want you to contact your instructor. Okay? Let me show you one thing right here. Do you see that these 48s are also common? Both rows also have the 48s in common. We want the lowest common denominator. That's what this process is all about. So we could do that on every single problem, but it would take us forever to get that done. But in this particular one, we had no choice. And finally, we're almost there. It's a good thing because my iPad is almost dead. It's down to 11%. Trey is 2/5 a mile from the store, and the store is 7/8 mile from his friend's house. Trey drives to the store and then to his friend's house. How far does he travel? Well, since he's moving, I'm going to draw this problem. So Trey leaves home. I'm going to call that H. And he goes to the store. And they tell us that that is 2/5 of a mile. And that his friend's house is 7/8 of a mile from the store. So if I want to know how far Trey drove, I need to add those two numbers. So 2/5 and 7/8. And unfortunately, the 8 will not serve as the denominator. So we need to find one. I'm just going to say 5/8 are 40. And then raise those up there. So 5 into 40 is 8. 8 into 40 is 5. And we're adding those two numbers. So we get 11, carry 1, 51/40. And again, I know that's improper, but this book says that's okay. So let's go with D as our answer on number 17. Okay, that brings us to the end of practice 12. If you have questions on this practice, please contact your instructor. I can certainly understand that you would have questions. These are some tough problems without a calculator. Those of you with the calculator, you can just use the calculator. You should be getting the same answers. But again, if you have questions, please contact your instructor. And I'll see you